Good morning, everyone. How are you today on this Friday? I'm getting ready to start reading the book. Everything happens for a reason. I think you can see that. Everything happens for a reason by Myra Kirschbaum. In the beginning of this book, it says everything happens for a reason. The emotional energy, the secret high energy people use to beat emotional fatigue. Too good to leave, too bad to stay, a step by step guide to help you decide whether to stay in or get out of a relationship. The gift of the year. How do you achieve the most meaningful, satisfying, and pleasurable year of your life? Women in love, finding true love while staying true to yourself. It are some of her books. Our love is good to feel so bad, a step by step guide to identify and eliminating the love killers in your relationship. Parenting Breakthrough, the Relationship Approach by Dr. Faust. The first five are also by Myra Kirschenbaum. Finding the true meaning of the events in our life. Everything happens for a reason. Myra Kirschenbaum. This book's dedicated to Shay. I'm going to read the acknowledgement. She states, my entire life has been embraced by people struggling to find meaning for the events in their lives. I must have started doing research for this book when I was 4 years old. There I was, a displaced person's camp in the American zone in post-war Germany, surrounded by survivors of the worst experience you can imagine. No one can confide in me back then, of course, but no one would have stopped talking either when this tiny blonde girl clutching her doll wandered near their conversation. And who knows how often I heard people argue about whether the things that had happened to them could have any meaning. Who knows how often I heard their tears of despair or sighs of hope. And then just yesterday on the radio, I heard an American soldier who'd lost a limb in the fighting in Iraq say, you can never know why anything happens. But I could also hear in his voice a hunger for meaning that I must have heard in all of the voices around me back when I was a small child. It's people like this that I want to thank for making this book possible. It was their hunger for meaning that inspired me, and it was my hunger too. There's another group of men and women who went beyond the unanswered questions. Why? They pressed forward and discovered the reasons that some big event happened to them. The people who did this are my heroes, she said. And they are the ones I have to thank most of all for this book. It's filled with their stories, but they gave me enough material to fill a dozen books. Without their help and inspiration, this would not have been possible. I need to thank my husband and partner, Dr. Charles Foster, for writing and researching this book with me. Every idea, every word here is as much as his as it is mine. My mother made heroic sacrifices for me, and um, and more of our story, I realized that she saved my life a number of times. She had a huge impact on me on this book. I can't begin to express my gratitude. Many thanks also to my brother and sister in law. I am incredibly grateful to my children for the help, support, and encouragement. My agent, Howard Morham, is also my friend and my advisor and my all around guru. I'm very thankful to him for everything. A very special thanks to my publisher and editor, Shay. I known Shay for 20 years. At strategic points, she's come through for me me big time. The way this book looks and reads is very much the result of Shay's genius and passion. Thanks also for James Ford, who worked so hard with Shay on this book, and thanks to Sybil and my smart production editor. Julie Will has impressed me with her energy and ability. Thanks. I very much want to thank Debbie Norrell and Mary Shook for creating what is a quite simple and best book cover I ever seen. I'm incredibly grateful to Catherine, Melissa, for their wonderful work in bringing this book to people's attention. Finally, much thanks to all the people who've reached out to me over the years. Your suggestions, your requests for help, and your expression of appreciation have very much formed the fabric of my life. Here are some quotes. In a dark time, the eye begins to see. Theodore Roth. Happy is the person who can know the reasons for things. Virgil. Nothing is too wonderful to be true. Michael Faraday. Now, in the table of contents, we already read to my readers. Part 1, why everything happens. Everything really does happen for a reason. Let's do this. To my readers, I hope this book will have an impact on your life, but I know that it has completely changed mine. When I started actively doing the research on which this book is based, I didn't believe in God. I'd be very religious until been very religious until I became a teenager. And then suddenly I lost whatever it was that made it possible for me to have faith. You hear about people who wake up one morning and find their lost sense of taste. I lost my sense of God, and it was gone for most of my adult life. I can't really say how it happened that I've completely regained my faith in God, my utter sense that He is real and always with me. All I know is this. I heard the story after story. People who've gone through something incredibly difficult and then almost miraculously discovered real meaning in what they've gone through. And somehow in the process, hearing how life is filled with meaning, I became filled with the presence of God. Don't misunderstand me. This is not a book about God. It's a book about people in their search for meaning. You don't need to believe in God to believe in that there's meaning in events of your life. Plenty of people you'll meet in these pages who discovered the reasons they went through something are not believers, and that's fine. But this is a book about how everything can change for the better when you see that all of the events of your life have meaning and value. Things will probably change for you in a way that's different from the way that changed for me. The point is that there are things we desperately need if we're going to take the next step in our life. And somehow discovering how everything has meaning gives us just what we need to take those steps. All I can promise, all I can promise you is that by the end of this book, you'll have found the meaning of the events of your life. But I'm sure this knowledge will have profound effect on you and on how you live. I hope you will visit www.everythinghappensforareason.org and let me know about it. I look forward to hearing why everything happens. Chapter 1. Everything really does happen for a reason. It is really true that everything happens for a reason. After all, that's an amazing thing to say. That no matter what happens to you, not only does something valuable come out of it, but it's just what you need. Amazing as it sounds, it is true. It takes me a long time, but I now see that even in the worst disaster, I've had my share. There are wonderful gifts, hidden opportunities, and life enhancing lessons. And we couldn't have gotten them any other way. If someone as hard headed as I am can come to understand this, anyone can. Of course, sometimes it's easy for us to believe that everything happens for a reason. We see it in little ways, like when our plans for an evening out fall through at last minute. We discover that everything we really want is at home that night anyway. And sometimes we see it not so little ways. A woman I know wrenched wrenched her back and had to spend months in bed. She felt this was the last thing she needed in her life, particularly since it happened at a time when she had to make some important decisions. And then it hit her. It's exactly what she needed. Her old habit had been rushed impetuously into a new decision without thinking it through. Now it was if life were saying, if you won't give yourself time to think, I will. If you won't give yourself time to think, I will. We very much want to believe that things that happen to us have great meaning. It is the way we feel life should be. Yes, some days we feel our lives are a soap opera, but we need to have the sense that there is purpose and value to it all. And we're right. I want to reassure when you discover the true meaning of the events in your life, everything changes. You feel stronger because your sense that everything has meaning gives you great confidence. You feel wiser because you see everything connects. You're more in touch with who you are because you know that you're living the life you were meant to lead. And you're happier because you're able to put your loss behind you and have a sense of future filled with good things. Until you get to this place, nothing is going to feel right. Believe me, nothing's going to feel right. Let's say you're outdoors and you suddenly feel a drop of moisture fall on your head. You're not going to be able to think of anything else until you figure out why that happened. Is water dripping from some air conditioner up high? Is it starting to rain? Is it flying monkeys peeing on your head? You have to know why that drop of moisture fell on your head because you can't feel safe going forward until you do. We need to know. Hold on, guys. Let me see. All right. I'm going to mark this page. Um, One moment. We need to know why much more when what fell on our head is a catastrophe. If you can't make sense of catastrophes, it's as if your life is a mere dice on a crap table. If nothing has any meaning, everything random and anything can happen. It's painful to live not knowing why you got sick that time or why you lost the love of your life. Much more painful than people suspect. One woman I know was flying home for Thanksgiving when she was in college, and the plane was flying along 20,000 feet in the air. She developed a terrible earache, but that's not what made her cry. In the dark of nighttime flight, she was sobbing because there was a pain like this in the world, seemingly without any rhyme or reason. One guy described this feeling differently. When I think about the bad stuff that happens in my life, I feel I'm just a goddamn fool of a cosmic. It's humiliating. On a sidewalk crowded with people, I'm the one who stepped in the dog poop. No one else as stupid or unlucky as I am. The problem is, how can I go forward? How can I trust the future if I feel I'm stupid and I'm an unlucky guy? Knowing that there's a reason for what happens also saves us from being filled with blame. Blame is a very human attempt to make sense of some catastrophe, but most of the time we hate the way it feels. And yet, When something bad happens to us, it's almost a reflex to think it's because everyone hates me, because I'm a loser, because I'm doomed. And so the blame begins. We blame other people, then we end up with the sense that the world is full of bad people. We blame ourselves. And instead of feeling healthy, strong, and whole, we ourselves are sick, weak, and broken as we blame life itself. What could be more demoralizing than feeling condemned to having bad things always happen to us, not being able to do anything about it? Blame is like a boomerang that loops around and bonks us on the noggin. Try this. If you see someone struggling with sadness, anxiety, and negativity, listen to his or her story. You'll see, you'll soon see he's living in a world where all he sees are things to blame because his life he lives without positive meaning for what's happened to him. The only cure to restore the sense that there is good reason for everything that happens, explain that. Why don't you? Years ago, if you said to me, everything happens for a reason, I'd have said that was a lot of bull. Things happened in my life that were so painful. It's no wonder I had trouble finding the meaning. I gave up looking. I know now that was a big mistake. Lots of things happen to us that challenge our sense that everything happens for a reason. It can be anything. You can get seriously ill at a worst possible moment. You can think you found the love of your life, but something goes haywire between you, and now the two of you are over. Hmm. You had one of those very painful childhoods. You screw up and lose a lot of money. Someone you love dies. Yeah, we think maybe there's a meaning for some things that happen, but not this. And even if we still have a shred of faith that there is meaning in these events, we don't know how to find it. After all, the events in our lives don't come to us with labels attached, telling us what they mean. We can spend years searching in vain. We ask friends, but they haven't gone through what we have. We ask someone who has gone through something similar, but that person is probably struggling to find meaning too. At some point, we might be tempted to give up the search. That's what happened to me. It took me one of my patients to wake me up and give me the hope that we can discover the meaning of the events in our life. Everything's important. I've learned about how to do my job. I've learned from my patient. Scott was one of my best teachers. The message in the bottom. We all have dreams of what we'd like to do with our lives. When Scott first came to see me many years ago, he was dreaming about going back to school and becoming a landscape designer. But he was afraid to give up his well paying job. As you can imagine, addressing underlying issues of anxiety, low self esteem, identity played an important role in our work together. Soon, though, our work was all about helping him get what he needed to make his dream come true. He ultimately completed a 2-year program at an excellent school and eventually opened his own little landscape and design business. He felt fulfilled. Several years later, Scott came back with me sadly. He had non-Hodgkin lymphoma. He thought he was dying. Scott's cancer eventually went into remission. He's still okay. He said he wanted to discover why this terrible disease had happened to him, just when his life was starting to work out. Isn't this really the theological question? I asked Scott. Truthfully, I didn't want to deal with a question like this. My attitude at the time was that you could never find an answer. And anyway, the most important thing to make the best use of the time you have remaining. Why ask why? But Scott, bless me, held on to his need. He was about to teach me an important lesson about how helping and ultimately about helping them find meaning. After I dismissed his question, Scott looked at me with tears in his eyes and if I betrayed him and said, "You don't understand. I don't want to die feeling like I was just some squirrel that run over run over the highway of life. Hey man, bad luck. I know that I'm not just a victim of a game of chance. I can't believe that. I live in a universe where things that happen to us don't have any meaning. There's some meaning in this. A message in a bottle for me. The message feels just out of reach, but it's very important to me. Help me get that message. Somehow that got through to me. I remembered how much I too had wanted the message back when I was a kid. In a few moments, I'll tell you about all the things that had happened to me and my family that left me hungry to find some kind of meaning and how discouraged I got when I didn't think I could find it. Looking in Scott's eyes, I lost my sense of being pissed at the universe because the things that happen to us don't come nearly neatly labeled with the true meaning. Scott needed reawakening, my own, and all the hopes that come with it. I thought my need for meaning was dead. I acted as if it were dead. But the utter genius and validated of Scott's need made me realize that my own need for meaning had never died. Suddenly, I felt a whole new connection to Scott, to my younger self, and to the world of people who were hungry to feel that what happens to them has meaning. There was just one problem. How in the world could I help Scott discover what he got, why he got sick and might die if I couldn't help myself? I find myself terribly moved as I told him that I saw how this situation should have meaning, then confessed that I didn't know how to help find that meaning. I felt him, and I felt terrible about it. But I made a promise to myself that I would learn how to help people find true meaning of the events in their lives. Scott called several months later. He obviously wasn't wasn't a disappointed in me as I was in myself. I guess we all know how tough this search is. He had a note of triumph in his voice. I know why I got sick, he said. Look at where I was in my life. I made a lot of progress, but I was still frightened of so many things: flying, confrontation, bad news, you name it. Here's the gift of getting sick, gave me. Every day, I'm learning not to be afraid big time. Death is the big confrontation. Once you face death, how can you be afraid of like someone rejecting you? You know, it's true. Cowards die 1,000 deaths. Heroes die but once. I'd rather live a short life without fear than living death a long life filled with fear. All and I wouldn't have discovered any of this if I hadn't got sick. I don't know how much time I have left to live, but in the time I have left to live, I'm feeling more alive and less afraid than I ever did before. Everyone who survives something feels they have a new lease on life. Remember that. Everyone who survives something feels they have a new lease on life. But Scott felt he had a new lease on life even when he thought he was dying. Understanding that there was meaning in what was happening to him, discovering What that mean was made all the difference for him. It made all the difference for me too. Remember, everyone who survives something feels they have a new lease on life. The first chapter of Everything Happens for a Reason. Have a blessed day.